28-3. Third quarter. The confetti was practically already loaded in the cannons for Atlanta. And then Tom Brady looked across the huddle and said 4 words that nobody in that stadium was ready for. Let's go to work. What happened over the next 22 minutes of football time would shatter every record, rewrite every rule book, and produce a moment so impossibly unlikely that even the people who witnessed it still struggle to believe it was real. How does a team come back from 25 points down in the Super Bowl? How does a franchise that had already won 4 championships find a level of desperation and greatness it had never touched before? And what was happening on that sideline between Bill Belichick and Tom Brady that the cameras almost never caught? Stay with us, because this is the greatest comeback in the history of professional football. February 5th, 2017, NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas. The New England Patriots against the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons came in playing the most explosive offense in the NFL that season. Matt Ryan, the league's MVP, orchestrating an attack that had dismantled defenses all year long with surgical precision. Julio Jones running routes so clean they looked choreographed. Devonta Freeman hitting gaps before linebackers even recognized them. And in the first half, they were absolutely everything they promised to be. The Falcons were not just winning, they were humiliating the greatest dynasty in NFL history on the biggest stage in American sports. 28-3. The number flashed on the scoreboard like a verdict. Vegas oddsmakers, in real time, calculated New England's chance of winning at less than 1%. Less than 1%. Let that sit with you for a moment. The greatest quarterback of all time, the greatest coach of all time, together, they had less than a 1% chance of winning that football game. The Atlanta sideline was electric. Fans in that stadium were already dialing up post-game celebrations. And in the New England locker room, at halftime, by multiple accounts, the silence was the loudest thing in the building. But here is where the story turns. Here is where something shifts that you cannot fully explain with statistics or strategy. Brady came out in the third quarter, and he was not panicking. He was not forcing throws. He was methodical, patient, almost unnervingly calm. And slowly, possession by possession, yard by yard, that deficit began to crack. A touchdown drive. Then a 2-point conversion. Then a Julian Edelman catch that defied the laws of physics. A ball that bounced off 3 different sets of hands and fingertips before Edelman somehow scraped it off the turf, inches from the ground. A catch that, every single replay, still makes your jaw drop. 28-28. The stadium was shaking. The Falcons, who had been 1 quarter away from a championship, were suddenly staring at overtime. And here is the mind-blowing part. Super Bowl Eli was the very first Super Bowl in history to go to overtime. 50 years of Super Bowls, and it had never happened. Not once, until this night. And in overtime, New England won the coin toss, marched down the field, and James White punched it in from 2 yards out. Final score, 34-28. Patriots win, the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history. The greatest comeback arguably in the history of professional sports. Now here is the question that still divides football fans to this day. Was that Falcons collapse a failure of coaching, a failure of nerve, or did Tom Brady and Bill Belichick simply will something into existence that had no right to exist? Drop your answer in the comments, because that debate will never fully be settled. What we know is this: Matt Ryan finished that game with more passing yards than Brady. The Falcons had more total yards. On paper, in almost every statistical category, Atlanta played well enough to win. But football is not played on paper. It is played in moments. And in the moments that mattered most, when the weight of history pressed down hardest, one team buckled and one team bent the entire universe to its will. Brady finished the night completing 43 passes. He threw for 466 yards. He was named Super Bowl MVP for the fourth time in his career, and he was 39 years old. The comeback was not just a football game. It was a reminder that sport at its highest level is not about talent or scheme. It is about belief. About the 1% that everyone else has already surrendered. 28-3. Three words that will echo through the history of this game long after every player on that field is gone. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Gridiron Legends for more unforgettable football history.